He knew this was a seminal moment in his company's history, so Mark Matson spent hours preparing to host the interview, and yet he was caught by surprise, pleasant as it was. Asked by Dr. Harry Markowitz to join him on his daily walk along the busy streets of La Jolla, California, in the shadow of downtown San Diego. They walked for over an hour, a modest stroll for Dr. Markowitz, 1990 Nobel laureate, anointed father of modern portfolio theory and investor's best friend.
The University of Chicago, the greatest research institution in the world.
His dissertation in 1952, how portfolio diversification was the answer to coordinating investor risk and return, strained computer competency of the mid-20th century, but ultimately earned him the Nobel in economics in 1990. It took decades for technology and the financial world to catch up with Dr. Markowitz. Now in his 90s, his pace has slowed, but it still takes mental dexterity to keep up with him on these walks or in his office, which is decorated with the elite honors of Nobel achievement. And it's in this office where the walk ends and the interview begins. Mark Matson and Dr. Harry Markowitz.
It's been a really life mission of mine too, and a dream come true to actually get to talk to you after so many years of studying your materials and striving to apply them to real world applications with investors. And
Thank you. You're the one who makes me famous. I mean, if nobody applied my stuff, nobody would know me.
That's great. I just want to acknowledge you for the massive contribution you've made to the world of investing and to the real world applications. I mean, I work with families trying to, keep their American dream intact and to have a prudent process that they can actually follow, to help them support their purpose in life is just, it's been a very gratifying thing.
The first such application was my dissertation called Portfolio Selection, but since then I've worked in many other fields.
That's one of the things that really fascinates me is the wide breadth of different disciplines and areas that you bring together. Many investors make the mistake of believing and acting like the world's certain. Can you speak to that?
Yes, let me tell you the difference between the word small investor doesn't really mean, because it could be a very large investor. But let's say the informed and uninformed investor.
Perfect.
The uninformed investor buys when the market goes up on the assumption that it's going to go up more, and it sells when he, she, or it, if it's an institution, sells when the market goes down on the assumption it's going to go down more. So there's buying high and selling low. On the other hand, with no ability to time whatsoever, you can rebalance. Rebalance is if you decide you want a 60-40 mix between stocks and bonds, and the market goes up, it's 70-30 now. So you got to sell to get down to 60-40, and you're selling high. Then if it gets down to 60-40, fine, but now it's going down to 50-50, and you have to buy in order to get it back to 60-40. And so as long as there's any variation, you are outperforming the market.
So many investors do focus on the wrong things. They're so focused on a prediction about the future. And as you said, markets go up, they're predicting it's going to continue to go up. And frequently I'm on Fox Business or CNBC, and every single time they ask me for a forecast. What's going to happen with this issue and what's
Do you remember what
happened in the market?
Who was it? I think J.P. Morgan was asked, what is the market going to do? And he says it's going to vary.
Yeah. And it always shocks me when I say, I don't know, and all the knowable information is most likely in the price, and only random and unpredictable things are going to change prices going forward.
Let's think about the market. Okay. Oh, by the way, I almost never place bets on individual securities.
One of the things that perplexes me is that I can explain as a practitioner the rules. Diversify, own equities, rebalance, and people will shake their head, oh yes, that sounds very, very good. There seems to be something about human nature that causes them to violate the rules. I'm sure you must have thought about that.
Well, remember what I said before was the difference between a sophisticated investor and unsophisticated investor. You young folks don't know what institutional investing was before 1950. You'd sit around like the guys on television now and say, oh, I think this is a good industry, this is a good stock. And he says, now you have a process. And I thought, aha, that's what I started. Now you have a process. And of course, the process doesn't consist only of portfolio theory and how to optimize and things like that, but we now have built an infrastructure, and that's what put you here.
I was looking up some statistics. In 1950, the U.S. and Great Britain made up about 90% of all the equities, and today they make about 58%. And so there's been a massive proliferation of international investing, and you mentioned emerging markets. And when we build portfolios, we have a global diversification, 45 different countries, emerging markets, which we believe, because of the modern portfolio theory, adds a great amount of diversification and actually reduces standard deviation. Can you speak to a little bit of this renaissance that you, literally founded, the grounding for this kind of diversification?
Remember Adam Smith, the broader the markets, the more diversified, the better the division of labor. There's a very close relationship between my work and Adam Smith. Adam Smith says, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker don't make great candlesticks for your benefits, it's for their benefit. Otherwise, you wouldn't buy their because you would compete with somebody else. Because you're competing with somebody else, because an investor sees that you're competing with somebody else, they don't know who's going to win, so they diversify. It all ties together.
It all ties back, yeah. What are some things that investors should avoid in the investing process?
Emotion.
So even the father of modern portfolio theory can get some emotions mixed in there at times.
I'm emotional.
We all are, right?
Yeah. Humans are emotional. So the thing is, there should be a division of labor between men and machine, persons, people, men in the capital M, man and machine. And this has to do not only with investing, but it has to do with, in general, building of what I call decision support systems.
One of the things I've been really preaching to investors is to have a purpose. My experience is that without a purpose for money and even for life, that the fallback position is speculating and gambling with money.
Yep.
It's seductive. But purpose is so critical in aligning all this in the process.
Chapter 6 of the Moo book is called the the title of the chapter is The Portfolio Selection Context.
Context, yes.
There are two contexts, the temporal context, today's action, and then there's what I call the game of life context. If you are married, have children, or a young person who expects to get married and have children, or if you don't expect to ever get married, but you want or have children, but you have goals beyond, charitable goals or something, you have a context, and these all influence what should be your portfolio selection decision.
I can remember specifically watching the market go down in 2008, 2009, and we rebalance quarterly when the targets are 5% off, investors were. I went out. We're like, no, we're not. We're not only getting out. We're buying more while it's going down because that's what you paid me to do. But it took a lot of intestinal fortitude and courage to do that because everybody, TV, panic. It was that was not a popular thing to do.
Extraordinary popular delusions and the madness of crowds. So when everybody's getting out, you get in.
How has your work been either misused or mischaracterized by people?
Let me count the ways. A secretary of mine brought in some ad which says some investment scheme which I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Said this investment scheme, which I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, is based on the theories of Markowitz and Sharp.
The 2 or 3 most important takeaways that your research that investors should keep in mind as they're investing to reach their life's goals.
It's very easy. Well, first place, you have to decide where you are in time, where you are in the life cycle. There is no right answer for everybody. There isn't the same list of securities for everybody. I'm 91 years old. I won't tell you what my wealth is. I'm perfectly, but now I'm wealthier because I've got these securities. Mm-hmm. So as I said before, there is a temporal context and there's a game of life context, and the game of life depends on where you are in life.
What your purpose for life is.
What your purpose for life, yeah.
Well, I want to just thank you.
Right.
You've made a great impact.
I never expected to make any impact on anybody. I just wanted to know, what do we know and how do we know it? I love knowledge for knowledge's sake. Knowledge turns out to be power. Power is either good or bad. You figured, and the knowledge I seek turns out to be of great value. And if I can get a small percentage, I'll take it.
Spoken like a great capitalist. Thank you,
My pleasure.
Dr. Markowitz.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.